Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
Greetings from Australia. By now you should have meditated, so let us, for those of you who care to, establish our refuge and cultivate bodhicitta, taking just a moment to remember the Buddha here in the space in front of you, bring him present, and let us begin. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha, through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom, may attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha, through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha, through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. All right, well, so good to be with you, even all the way from Australia and virtually. I was hoping to have an opportunity to broadcast live from Australia, but our timing is not going to work out, so I am recording this a little earlier. We've had a great time here, and it has been amazing to see this country in the bits that we've been able to see. Do hope all of you are well and take good care of yourselves. And again, I'm just so grateful that no matter where we are, we're able to continue to connect and engage in our practice and to have access to these incredible teachings by His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, and Thubten Chodron. So last week, I think we unpacked quite a bit. And, at this portion of the text, it's really about practical practice, about how we engage with these teachings, about what it is we do with these words that have been given us. For ultimately, that's how we transform our hearts and minds. That's how we liberate ourselves from afflictions. And the ultimate path to liberation is going to be about wisdom, about truth, about understanding the true nature of ourselves and our experience. And so we're picking up the text here, I believe at Rituals and Prayers. Let me pop it up. Let's see here. I believe I have it. Oh, yeah. Prayers and Rituals. So this will be the voice of His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, speaking here. Many people ask me to pray for them. Thousands of Buddhas and gurus already pray for us. But because we do not practice sincerely, nothing happens. Our progress depends on our own effort. And I'm always delighted when students sincerely practice to transform their minds. That is the best offering. Bodhisattvas make a vast variety of aspirations and prayers and then strive to accomplish their aspirations. In contrast, ordinary people pray to have a happy life, but ignore Dharma practice, which is the source of happiness. And let's just take a moment with that sentence. Dharma practice, the source of genuine happiness. In this context, Dharma is not Buddhism. it could be the Buddhist teachings, but Dharma practice, meaning that which is cultivating genuine happiness, that which is cutting through afflictions, that which is cultivating wisdom and compassion. And we'll find Dharma in modern Western psychology, we'll find Dharma in other religions and so forth. So what he's saying here is, yeah, I want a happy life, I'm praying for a happy life, but my actions are not those that will eliminate suffering or struggle. They're creating grasping and jealousy and anger and frustration and so forth. So to be clear, that's this idea of Dharma practice. Dharma is anything that we're doing that is leading us towards a more genuine state of happiness and well-being. And then that's the context that we're seeing here. We can be praying for all this happiness, but not doing anything to actually cultivate it. Okay. Back to the text. They pray, may I be healthy, but eat junk food. They aspire to have good relationships with others, but are careless with their speech. Good relationships will elude us as long as we speak divisively, blame or criticize others. So you can see what he's, the points he's making. Not disregarding prayer, but prayer without action. And if I'm doing something that's the opposite, it's not going to be that helpful. We should be like bodhisattvas and think about what causes will accomplish our prayers. If we create those causes, our prayers will bear fruit, and we will be receptive to the inspiration of the three jewels, and will be receptive to the inspiration of the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So, makes sense, right? When we request spiritual mentors or monastics to pray for us, we should, from our side, refrain from non-virtuous behavior and act constructively. That way, their prayers can be effective. The actualization of virtuous prayers and aspirations is a cooperative effort. Prayers are made, we engage in virtuous actions, and the three jewels send their inspiration. The Prajna Varman's commentary on the Udinana Varga, the Buddha says, the Buddhas do not wash away negativities with water, clear away beings' dukkha with their hands, or transfer their realizations to other beings. They liberate them by teaching the truth of reality. Buddhists cannot magically make everything go well in our lives and in the world. As has been stated many times, if they could, they would. They don't want us to suffer. None of us would be suffering. The principal way they help us sentient beings is by teaching us how to create the causes for happiness and abandon the causes for suffering. Making our actions accord with their instructions, especially those regarding ethical conduct, is essential to alleviate dukkha. Again, dukkha is this pervasive suffering, the conditioning of samsara itself. We may recite thousands of prayers and mantras, but if we do not use the Dharma tools to transform our minds, we are wasting time. As Patrul Rinpoche candidly says, ritual sessions 4 times a day without generation and completion stages, pounding drums and clashing cymbals without reminding ourselves of pure perception, droning mantras without any concentration. All that gets us no further on the path to liberation. So here, speaking in the context of tantric practices where they would generate these completion stages and bring in a certain mind, a certain concentration into those practices. They're not going to be helpful if you're just doing the rituals. And we'll read just a bit further and we'll unpack this a bit. The main purpose of rituals involving deity yoga practice is to generate the union of method and wisdom. It's not to seek blessings, as if nirvana were something external to us that our spiritual mentor or meditational deity could transfer into our mind stream. Tantric practices are very profound, but to derive the greatest benefit from them, you must have a good foundation in general Buddhist teachings and learn how to meditate while performing these rituals. While making offerings to the Sangha and requesting them to perform pujas on our behalf create merit due to our sincere motivation, we should not think that we can hire someone to create merit, freeing us to continue to deceive customers at work or get drunk with our friends. So again, pretty common practices of making offerings to the monks or nuns at a monastery, supporting them. It all cultivates merit. I mean, we are, by making offerings to them, supporting this whole great unfolding of the Dharma and maintaining lineages and creating conditions for the Dharma to flow throughout the world and upholding these ancient lineages and teachings. And I mean, it's incredible merit to make such offerings. But all of that merit that's being created, if we're not cultivating our hearts and minds and changing our behaviors, it's really not going to have the impact it could have. So, as you say, we can't go cheat customers or then go get drunk and think that we're still going to be okay. That it's okay, I've made the offerings. Or in the previous paragraphs where they're talking about these specific rituals within tantric type practices through deity yoga. And these are intricate practices that people get trained in. But even to engage in those, if I'm excuse me there, if I'm not bringing the proper conditions of ethics and understanding on emptiness and concentration, well, they're not going to be very effective. So a lot of people will get stuck in the idea of, I need to do these types of rituals, or I need to do these types of pujas, and it's all going to be good. We do a Sunday Chenra Sig practice, a very beautiful practice. It's a sadhana practice. And we, bring to mind the Buddha of compassion. We go through a purification practice. We make offerings to all the Buddhas mentally. And then there's this purification process we take part in, all of which can be profoundly powerful and incur a great deal of merit. We can cultivate just vast amounts of merit through this practice if we're bringing a sincere practice in heart and mind and motivation and a purification that can take place. But if I go out right after that sadhana practice and then engage in divisive speech and resentment and so forth, and engage in activities that are unethical, not going to help that much. So some people have this idea. It's kind of like when I was raised Catholic. I can go do all these sins. I'm going to go to the confessional, and then it'll all be washed away. So no big worry. Not at all like that. the way to really understand prayer and rituals and these practices are, they can be incredibly effective, nurturing conditions for the development of our merit and our wisdom, of our path of awakening. Those are the two accumulations to full awakening: merit and wisdom. So if we think about seeds and wanting to grow something, we can put the seed in soil. Doesn't mean it'll grow very well. Might be in desert soil, so that's not going to do well if I'm trying to grow a seed that needs a lot of water and nourishment. The prayers and practices that we engage in, the ethical behavior that we engage in, well, those are going to be the soil and the nutrients, the sun and the water, and all of that will allow those seeds to grow. But if I am, trying to just accumulate merit or, go through certain practices without any seed, it's not that helpful. The seed of causes for wisdom, for compassion, well, that needs to be present for it to grow. That would be a cause. But the conditions then that can support the growth of that seed would be then these prayers, these blessings, certain rituals that have come together from the aspirations of others. And if you think about how we all are supported all the time, from anything that we eat, how many conditions had to ripen for the meal that you're about to eat, or the clothes that you're wearing, or the words that you now are able to speak, or the very life that you have, and all the conditions that have ripened for every single aspect of your life. There are multiple factors. Likewise, with our Dharma practice, there are people that have engaged in these practices centuries ago that we'll never have met, who are creating conditions for us to have access to them, for them to ripen within us. And they can't directly transfer that to us, but through their practices, through the practice of Dharma and the transmissions, the building of monasteries, the others that have engaged in these practices, the different people that have touched the way that we actually have a Dharma center, the fact of, here we are listening to these teachings, having His Holiness and Thubten Chodron explain these things to us, are all factors coming together for us to engage in this path of freedom, of liberation, of awakening, of cutting through afflictions. And so it's a myriad of causes and conditions coming together simultaneously. And so you could see then where, obviously prayers, aspirations, things can work quite effectively. We're benefiting from all of that, from all of those even before us and people we've never met. But I can turn a blind eye to them. I can be not affected by them at all. Just think, that's hocus pocus. Or I could, intellectually believe that, this is wonderful, but then not engage in the practice from my own side, not cultivate the virtue and really focus on how I can be more compassionate and kind. And as His Holiness will point out, this idea of cultivating compassion and wisdom, right? Method and wisdom, merit and wisdom. And you're going to hear these sort of interchangeable words in certain ways that are always the path of awakening. That's going to be critical for all of this to come together from our side. It's kind of like people can be offering us everything we've ever wanted, but if I don't even see it or I can't accept it, it's not going to be very helpful. Okay, let's get back to the text, because His Holiness makes some good points here I want to be able to get to. People easily believe that the performance of a ritual, not the mental change it is supposed to invoke in the participants, is an end to itself. This is precisely the attitude that the Buddha opposed during his life, and that led to his disapproval of rites and rituals done simply for their own sake. Nowadays, it seems that some people are going backward into the superstitious way of thinking and not forward to deeper, more genuine practice. After a large teaching in the West some years ago, the students wanted to offer me a long life puja. Although I appreciated their kind intentions and good wishes, I explained to them that it is their Dharma practice that keeps their gurus alive and ensures the presence of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the world. If they don't practice, there's no need for Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to appear in the world or for teachers to live long. However, if the students practice even a little of what I teach, so that when we meet again, they have less anger, jealousy, and attachment, then I will be extremely happy, and the cause for their spiritual mentors to live long will be present. My teacher always emphasizes the best gift we could ever offer is our practice. So, once again, it's not about the ritual, it's about our practice. I was once requested to exercise the spirit. Not knowing any rituals for this, I meditated on compassion and bodhicitta. Later, the people told me the problem stopped. So I felt that perhaps I did something helpful. Another time, customers of a hotel had had bad experiences in a particular room. Not telling me this beforehand, the staff had me stay in that room, where I did my daily practice, which includes meditation on compassion and emptiness. Later, they told me that the room had become peaceful and their customers could stay there again. While I haven't realized bodhicitta or emptiness, this attests to the power of meditating on them. Please remember this when you face difficulties. So, compassion and emptiness, bodhicitta and emptiness, compassion and wisdom, merit, which is cultivated through bodhicitta and wisdom. These are these two accumulations. And he stated the power of those are the transformative powers, and emptiness is going to be just so important in our process. In the Tibetan community, it is common to ask a spiritual mentor to do a divination when facing an obstacle or beginning a new project. Divination texts often attribute a problem to a spirit harm, and usually the diviner will recommend a particular puja to be performed to eliminate the obstacles caused by spirits. However, as Buddhists, we should not be attributing our problems to external beings, but to our own karma. I prefer that instead of prescribing pujas, diviners tell people to meditate on bodhicitta and emptiness, to deepen their refuge in the three jewels, or to reflect on the law of karma and its effects and engage in purification practices. These will definitely cure the causes of suffering by transforming people's minds. There is no need to consult a horoscope before starting a project or deciding where to place an altar. I don't have much faith in horoscopes and astrology. My tutor, Ling Rinpoche, told me he was born on a day of 9 bad signs. Okay, he's one of the greatest lamas of all time. We don't wait for a good date for the two most significant activities of our lives, our birth and death. However, as an ancient tradition that is part of Tibetan culture and heritage, it's important to continue Tibetan astrology. So His Holiness is trying to hammer home a point here. And sometimes we can get lost in the mix of it. It's not that these things couldn't be helpful. It's that the most important thing is what we do from our side, that ultimately from our own side, we need to create the conditions for this liberation, that we can cultivate the causes of genuine happiness and well-being. And it is in all of these practices that we engage in are geared towards cultivating these two accumulations of merit and wisdom, this bodhicitta and wisdom. And in that way, we'll be taken care of no matter what other conditions arise. We had a little bit of a discussion, I think it was last week or the week before, where someone that actually one of my teachers had he was going to die in liver disease, and one of his teachers traveled a bit to Kamnagandan Monastery in India and performed all of these pujas in front of the stupa of Chodron Rinpoche. And he didn't tell my teacher. This is one of my other teachers, not Geshe Sultan Kelton, a different teacher. And so unbeknownst to him, his Lama is doing all these rituals and pujas, and sure enough, his liver, got better, and he's able to live many more years. He found out later when talking to his teacher that this was happening. So then one would say, well, that's kind of opposite of what His Holiness is saying, right? Nobody can transfer that. But if we really understand what His Holiness is saying is, well, my teacher was doing all these practices to benefit all other beings. He spent his whole life doing that. His whole purpose in this lifetime was to be of benefit to all beings. And so from his side, he was constantly engaged in practices, even accepting that, he was going to die from this liver disease, and never failed to engage in his own practice and compassion. So he's creating these conditions to be receptive to, of course, all the other aspirations and prayers and things that are going on in underneath his own aspirations himself. For example, one of the things that he had done in his life was translated many very important texts into English that had not been translated. So there's these other greater purposes that he was to fulfill. And it wasn't just simply him independent. We're not independent, we're interdependent. So his teacher, knowing how important these tasks were, devoted his time and energy to go do those pujas. Others had created different conditions. He had had his multiple lifetimes before, and his teacher and he, had spent a life together at Gondan and had received these very precious transmissions. So it's not always, it's even though we're responsible for our own side, there is no absolute independent self. So we are capable of receiving support, right? The water, the nutrients, the fertilizer for our seeds to grow, if we are nurturing from our side these seeds of compassion, wisdom. And so His Holiness is making a point, while we have no control about what others do, or can depend on some ritual or activity without us engaging from our side, we can always do something from our side that is going to be the most important practice, is what are we doing? And yeah, we might receive blessings, we might receive others' aspirations and prayers. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are praying for us. He made that point. But if we're not creating the conditions to receive them, it doesn't matter. Likewise, instead of doing our practice, we can't just offer money or have others do prayers for us to heal and be well without transforming our minds from our side or engage in virtuous activities and so forth. So it's a very dynamic thing. And His Holiness is saying, what's most important always is what we're doing from our side. So hopefully there's some clarity around that, and probably some good things to discuss amongst each other. And I encourage you to, as I sign off here, to stand a bit and have a little discussion. Rachel, I know, is very good at guiding such discussions. I appreciate you running the teaching. And I appreciate all of you for continuing to engage with these precious teachings, for, again, all of your practices. Again, create conditions for teachers, create conditions for the Dharma, create conditions for all of the ripening for countless others to also have access to these teachings on liberation, freedom, genuine happiness, and well-being, all of which we can use very much in this world today. So thank you for your practice. One, let's see, announcement is I will be back next week. So we'll be live from Carbondale once again. We do have registration open for the retreat at Juanita. And I do want to thank everyone that is able to support with a donation. Our funds have gotten a bit low due to the last monk's visit, which was very productive and in so many ways, but it did drain us a little bit. So I do want to thank all of you that have been continuous donors, and we'll see if we can't do a little bit of some special activity next month to see if that might create the conditions for some more offerings. So thank you. All right, well, let's go ahead now and dedicate the merit that we have already cultivated with our time here together. This practice of attending teachings, of listening to teachings, and bringing them into our hearts and minds, well, creates merit. And here we'll take a moment to reflect on countless others around the world also dedicated to helping others, and let us collectively dedicate all of their merits along with ours for the benefit of all sentient beings, that they may become free of their suffering, may find liberation, and for our own continued spiritual growth as we engage in this path of awakening ourselves, so we can be of ultimate benefit to all beings. Let us dedicate. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha.